How's it going, everybody? This is the Stimulus Check Hub here, and today I'm going to be making a video about some good news that I believe is very important for everyone to know. The good news is that this entire economy is going to collapse. Now, some of you out there might be saying, well, I don't want it to collapse. I kind of like the way things are, but really think about this for a second. Do you really believe that this system that we have right now can maintain itself another 20 to 30 years? You really believe that? You really believe that housing relative to incomes are going to stay at this level? Have you noticed how in a lot of the news media, you're seeing all of these people run their mouths about how, people don't want to work, people don't want jobs, people are just being lazy on unemployment. That's all propaganda. That's all propaganda. That's all an attempt to basically produce more worker slaves that they can pay $10 an hour to do a job that in the 1950s, adjusted for inflation, you'd be getting paid $18 to do. That's all it is. So this whole thing is rigged. This entire economy is a joke, and they're going to have to do permanent stimulus, in my view. And you can call this a conspiracy theory, call it whatever you want to call it, but if you have the economy to the point where an average house is running, $400,000 now? I mean, it depends on where you live, but, go to California, the average house is north of $1 million. And the average income in this country for an individual is $35,000. So we're reaching an end to this cycle of these massive, what I would call an asset bubble. And basically these huge asset bubbles have been blown up and the air is going to get let out of them. The housing is going to go down in price because any higher, it's just going to be completely unaffordable. The only way the government can keep this system going is by eventually issuing stimulus on a permanent basis. And people call me a conspiracy theorist for saying that, and they say it's unfounded, but it's really not if you just look at it logically. Logically and empirically, most people believe that housing over a 20-year period is going to go up in price because of inflation. Most houses appreciate at about 2 to 3% per year, from my research. But the problem is now, with all of this money flooding the system, and with all of these backlogs, and with the huge crash we had, there's really not a lot of houses on the market, and the ones that are in the market are getting sold for full cash offers above asking price. So this isn't sustainable. This entire thing's going to end, but the only way the government can keep it going is by issuing stimulus on a permanent basis. I don't see any other way. I don't see any other way. Because in 2008, what happened was a bunch of people basically couldn't pay their mortgages because they had these adjustable rate loans. And as soon as the interest started going up and the housing value started going down, they couldn't refinance at a lower rate. And you're seeing the same thing today. People are saving their stimulus checks, a lot of it. If you look at the amount of money actually in the system comparatively, there's actually more savings right now than there's ever been before. And all that money is going to enter the system, and you're going to keep seeing prices go up. You're going to see housing continue to go up for a while. Eventually, it's all going to blow up, and it's all going to collapse. But the good news here is that this entire system is going to fail. That's the good news. They can't keep it going without more stimulus. So it's either they're going to keep giving out stimulus on a continuous basis, or the system's going to crash, in my view. Because how can you keep this kind of system going? If interest rates were to go up, and mark my words on this, when interest rates go up, this entire bubble is going to crash. People are going to lose their houses. It's going to get bad. So everybody should be preparing for this. The elites are going to crash it whenever it's convenient. Understand, if they have control of the interest rates in the economy, they control the whole economy. They control the entire market. If they want to crash the stock market, very easily, they just raise interest rates. It'll crash the whole thing. If they want to increase the stock market, very easily, we lower interest rates, introduce some new lending facilities. This whole thing's rigged. This whole economy's rigged. And I say that I'm half kidding, but I'm really not kidding. I'm really not kidding here. The economy is actually structurally rigged from the top down. It's rigged by the Federal Reserve. It's rigged by the government. It's rigged by the Treasury. That's just what it is. That's just what's happening. But the only way they can keep the game going is with continuous stimulus. That's why they're doing these central digital bank currencies you're going to see them implement. Mark my words. They're going to do a central digital bank currency. Everyone's going to have an account. It's going to be similar to Bitcoin. They're going to set negative interest rates on the accounts. They're going to be able to take money out of people's accounts without them knowing about it or without them being able to do anything about it. They're going to get rid of cash. Watch for that. Watch for that. As soon as they say they want to ban cash, that is a huge red flag. Because then they're going to have us totally relying on their stimulus 24/7. They're going to be able to control what we buy, where we buy everything at. It's going to be a nightmare. But yeah, that's their goal. Their goal is total and complete control of the bond market. Once they have total and complete control of the bond market, it's going to be state-run capitalism. That's where they're taking us. They're going to take us to a position where the government runs everything, top to bottom, through the Federal Reserve. The government lends out money to companies. Those companies have to pay their workers certain amounts. It's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work, but they're definitely transitioning us to that. And I really sincerely believe within the next 10 years, we will see a universal basic income because there will not be a choice. They will not have a choice but to implement a universal basic income, because the amount of people who will not be able to pay off their homes because the home values are going to keep going up probably until interest rates go up, that it's just going to reach astronomical levels because wages just aren't keeping up with inflation. We're at the end of this cycle, this huge cycle of debt, this huge cycle of corruption in the government, allowing people to enrich themselves. This is all coming to an end. A lot of people call it the end times. A lot of people call it the second coming, whatever you want to call it. The point is it's going to collapse. It's going to collapse in on itself, and it's a good thing because this system is totally rigged, and you actually, as a common person, as a common man or woman out there, you really can't work your way up in this system, given how rigged it is. I mean, you really, in order to work your way up in this system, you really have to hit on all cylinders. I mean, you have to have a degree probably or some sort of trade or business you started. I mean, it's like you have to really crank it out of the park in order to be successful with how rigged this system is. You can't just be a common person anymore. It's not enough just to be a common good person. Now you got to be, you got to work way harder than, it's just a rigged system. But it's going to fail. It's going to be a good thing. I'm excited for it to fail. It deserves to fail. The powers that be have rigged it up in such a way where it's going to fail, and it's their fault for it failing. I mean, they could have been honest with the people and avoided this whole thing, and we could have had a stable system with stable and realistic growth. Have you ever noticed how it's never enough for these people? It needs to be growth no matter what. That's how the system was designed. It's a necessary element. But this whole system's going to fail. It's going to fail. It's going to be glorious. The stimulus checks, in my view, will be permanent, assuming they don't let this asset bubble pop. There's no other way, really. The Federal Reserve is going to blow up their balance sheet indefinitely in order to keep interest rates artificially low. But the whole system's going to come crashing down eventually. When is that? It's totally up to them. They can crash it whenever they want.